Dr. Gayle-Geddes to stand. This is the author. She has come in from Jamaica, specially for this conference, and especially to introduce us to this book. Now, this book on disability and inequality. Now, we have done some publications in Trinidad at the Disability Studies Unit. But I have to acknowledge up front that this is the most in-depth and practical publication and fullest publication that I have seen so far from the Caribbean. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about this book. As you are well aware, that disability as an area of study is relatively new in the Caribbean generally. And what we are more familiar with is special education, which has been taught in Jamaica. It's taught right here. But disability studies as an area of looking at disability in a more holistic manner is really just 10 years in the making, 10 going in 11 years in the making. We started it here at UE in St. Augustine. So that, as I said, we've done some publications, but now we are seeing people doing research in the area. And Dr. Gayle-Geddes is one of those pioneers. Now, her book essentially talks about the experiences of disability, taking an international purview, but also looking at what is happening in Jamaica. We talk a great deal about inadequate data, but she has done a pretty good job compiling quite a bit of the data here. She starts by looking at the environmental factors affecting persons with disabilities. She would talk, for instance, about the physical arrangements, issues around physical access, the social conditions, the attitudes, and attitudes are really at the core of the issue of disabilities. So she doesn't just glib it over, but she talks about the issue and how that infects the environment. She talks about the need for different products and technology. Much can be done to improve the lives of persons with disabilities today. There are lots of different technological aids that exist. Many of them we are not familiar with, but these can help to make life much more livable and acceptable for somebody with a disability. Relationships. You know, it was pointed out earlier on in the session I just came from that persons with disabilities have a right to family life. They have a right to a sexual life. They have a right to relationships of intimacy. And very often we never think about that. But she talks about the environment and how relationships can affect a person with disabilities. And then, of course, the different services that we are providing. And, of course, my baby, policy. We don't realize the importance of setting guidelines for so many areas in our lives. And policy is really about setting some direction in terms of where we want to go, what we want to achieve as a people. And this is one of the areas that is important in our environment. And it's important for us to have an environment where people can make good policy, not just throw money at a problem. And these are some of the factors that she talks about. She then mentions the importance of participation, the importance of persons with disabilities being able to participate in life situations such as voting, recreation, and we are going to have a session this evening on sports and recreation, education, and access, of course, to the work environment, employment, so that inclusion implies participation. And these are the factors that we want to influence in our environment. Now, how to do it? What do we do? Or as Lenin said, what to do now? And one of our civil society people, well, what you got to do? What you going to do? And she does give some guidance as to what we're going to do. And before I talk about those, I want to remind us that we are signatories to the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This took place in 2006. We have not ratified that as yet. But that is one of the examples she shows where you can pull, in terms of policy, some guidelines as to where we should be going. Issues around the labor force. How do we conceptualize disability? Again, how do we deal with the attitudes, which she has described as a behavioral disposition to an individual in a particular way. Also institutional discrimination and the built environment, the lack of materials in Braille, inadequate access to health care, education, and of course our preconceived ideas of intelligence. All of these affect the lives of persons with disabilities. Now, what we're going to do, how to do with it. She identifies what we call public policy imperatives for the political, socio-economic inclusion of persons with disabilities into society. And I want us to really remember some of the things she's recommended. One, which we haven't started to work on yet in Trinidad, but the importance of anti-discrimination legislation so that we can ensure equal human rights and ensure access to social services, training, employment, healthcare, and communication. Anti-discrimination legislation. And this was brought up in a think tank that took place, and I remember the person dealing with the issue, he says, we need a law. It mustn't be that persons with disabilities must take people to court like George Daniel had to do. He says, no, no, no. We need a law. And if you're breaking the law, the police come in for you. The police come in for you. That is the importance of anti-discriminatory legislation. you have parking, and you're in a public place, you must have space for persons with disabilities to park. And the person with disabilities mustn't be the one to actually bring it up, because it's in law. And therefore, the legal system will deal with you. Mainstream disability in all development activities. So that those of us, I teach development studies, social development studies, and I have done that. I have mainstreamed as part of development disability, the elderly, family studies, that we have to see all of these areas as part of development. Development is not just an economic issue. The economic aspect of development is as a means to an end. And that means to the end is a better quality of life for all. So as we are looking and providing development services, towards what end? We are therefore thinking of including persons with disabilities in all planning. Then we have to recognize that sometimes you have to do specific things. And therefore, we need to support disability-specific initiatives, like this conference, for instance, and deal with access, accommodation, assistive support for persons so that they can live more independently. And then we have to be enablers, have key enablers, working in the area of human rights, social protection, and also see these as enabling factors. Basic social services, diagnostic assessments, rehabilitation, healthcare, communication, education, and training. So the way forward, this is what is setting the agenda for after this conference. Anti-discriminatory legislation, mainstreaming disability, supporting disability-specific initiatives, and having both people as enablers and an enabling environment governed by human rights, access to social protection, basic social services, diagnostic assessment, rehabilitation, healthcare, education, communication, and training. And in a nutshell, I've gotten my little notice, it's time for me to shut up. In a nutshell, I think this is to introduce you to the book. And I want to thank Dr. Gayle for gracing us with her presence and coming down to Trinidad all the way from Jamaica to share this book with us. Thank you.